Well, let's get some analysis now with economist Bilal Bagis, who joins us now from Istanbul. Really good to have you with us, Bilal. As we heard, there are some impressive figures announced by the Turkish president, exports rising to some $255 billion in 2023, marking the highest level of exports in the history of the Turkish Republic. Considering that this has happened in the wake of a post-COVID-19 recovery and the devastating February 2023 earthquakes in Turkey, explain to us which sectors have been driving this export growth.
Well, Turkey has surely been consistently growing since the pandemic, and it has been raising its trade and export shares to over 1%. And this is, of course, despite the weak global trade in the past few years since the pandemic, as you just mentioned, and the weak growth and trade due to additional high interest rates around the world and geopolitical risks, I would say. So all these factors, they have been bringing down, they are affecting all the world economies. All world economies were basically negatively impacted. But nowadays, particularly the defense industry, auto, electronics, IT, even jewelry, software industries, and in Turkey, even the agricultural sector, it has played a huge role in the Turkish export figures. And these figures, they are, despite the stagnant and recessionary Europe and Germany, the biggest export markets for the Turkish economy. And it's also despite the earthquakes that happened in 2023 in Turkey, in southeastern Turkey. And I would say with the addition of the TOG exports, the new national brand, new defense exports, and other Turkish brands, these figures, they should soon go further up.
Yes, and as we were discussing with Andrew a moment earlier, we know the Turkish president appointed a new finance minister in Mehmet Şimşek in the middle of last year. Also appointed was a new central bank governor into that role. So they've been steering the economy since June, July of last year. What impact has their leadership had on the recovery of the Turkish economy?
The new economic management team and the new economic program, they have certainly contributed to these figures. All these subsidies that the Turkey has started to provide, the finances, new incentives, the raised discount window limits, for example, by the Turkish Central Bank to the strategic sectors, new targets, new high-tech subsidies to different industries, and new trade deals from the Middle East to the Central Asia, even the faraway countries' strategies, and more focus on the global South, I would say. And overall, these recent, especially the export market diversification and the finances that are provided to the Turkish export sectors, they have helped bring up these figures. And Turkey is definitely focusing on bringing down these huge trade deficits that are close to 100 billion US dollar nowadays, and the current account deficit, which is over 40 billion US dollar. And Turkey is working on increasing the exports, the goods export and services exports. For example, the new targets for the tourism revenues to around 100 billion US dollar by 2028. And all the high export targets, such as over 500 billion US dollar, including the good and service exports.
Yes, and we're just currently looking at the graph there, or just a moment ago, of the declining Turkish trade deficit. We should explain to our viewers that the trade deficit is the difference of what Turkey imports versus what it exports. And we're seeing there a steady decline over the course of 2023, indicating the fact that the country is exporting more than it imports gradually. And the president said a moment earlier that the government is committed to bringing down that trade deficit even further. But Bilal, can I ask you there, you mentioned about the diversification of Turkish export markets, because the President had mentioned that the European Union continues to remain the #1 destination for Turkish exports. But it was interesting that the President also mentioned some key other export markets that enjoyed growth, namely the United Arab Emirates, the Russian Federation and Saudi Arabia. This would I guess, support your point that the diversification of the Turkish export market is really happening and picking up pace right now.
Well, absolutely. All these markets that you have just mentioned, from the Middle East to Russia and to the other faraway economies or regions of the world, but also the European economies, like the leading European economies, they are also predominantly buying from Turkey, mainly because especially in the post-pandemic trade war and broken supply chains period, Turkey has, in a way, been replacing conventional producers such as China, India, even I would say Taiwan, South Korea, as the new trusted global producer, supplier, or the global growth engine. And all these public incentives, relatively cheaper labor, and I would say much higher human capital and high quality production of the Turkish goods. And Turkey being as a reliable production partner, they all make Turkey a better trade partner for all these countries that we're talking about. And I would say Turkey is also the safest trade route from east to west, and also from the north to south. And part of this huge trade, it could also be related to Turkey's geostrategic, geoeconomic position. And of course, with the Europe, if we're talking about trade with Europe, the customs union agreement, and I would say even better compliance with the new carbon border adjustment mechanism that are effective as of 2023, they're also playing a role. And also, of course, the Turkish diaspora in those economies, it also plays a crucial role. And the services export to these economies is also rising, actually. And Turkey has, as we just mentioned, has a new target for over 100 billion tourism revenues by 2028.
Yes. All right, Bilal Bagis, we will have to leave it there, but really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much for joining us.